Okay, now that we're in January of 41, I need to organize my forces for the eventual invasion, just in case. So I'm gonna get to that now, and I'll see you when it's over. Well, while I'm sorting, I should talk about stuff that happens. So America declares the undeclared war, and basically what happened is they America started trading a lot. They did the same thing in World War One, where America's arms industry started producing at basically war level way before America ever got involved because there's a lot of money to be made, and we dealt primarily with the United Kingdom, but also we started collaborating with the Soviets after they were attacked. Uh, and the UK needed to buy all sorts of stuff from us because they were right now and a little earlier. The Battle of Britain was going on, where Britain was being where they it was attempted by the Luftwaffe to bomb Great Britain into submission. There's also a chance Hitler planned an operation that was never executed called Operation Sea Lion, which would be executed after air superiority was gained over Britain, where they would basically just hop across the channel onto Dover and other parts of England, but it never happened. If you're a Germany player in this game and London falls, the Soviet Union will immediately attack you. So, there's that. Oh yeah, and while we've got some other cool stuff going on, I've got some new ministers, and we're gonna use them. So we've got Andrei Penfilov. He gives us +5 leadership. Definitely gonna do that, although he didn't realistically take that position away from Beria, but we don't need Beria. And he also gives us 20% land intel as head of intelligence, so the designers of this game really like Panofilov. I'm gonna keep Shaposhnikov despite other opportunities. I'm going to keep Voroshilov, and I'm gonna keep Kuznetsov. Although they have Isakov in the game, he was another very important staff officer in the Navy. He's particularly well known for the fact that while he was defending or organizing the defense in the Caucasus around not Novorossiysk, Tuops, there it is. In Tuops, his car was attacked by Bf-109 German fighters, and his leg had to be amputated as a result, and he spent the rest of the war in the hospital. And while he was in the hospital having surgery done, he sent Stalin a letter asking that if he died, could they please name a boat after him? And Stalin asked Kuznetsov, who was head of the Navy, what he thought about it, and they decided together that if he did die, they would name the best destroyer in the Black Sea Fleet after him, but also noted in the letter that the doctors said he was gonna recover, so he didn't need to worry about it. Also, right next to Tuops is Sochi, and that's or Sochi, where he recovered, and also where the Olympics just were held, the Winter Olympics. And while we're organizing more aggression from the Nazis, who, in an attempt to help Mussolini with his now very botched war, and the Bulgarians, who are their capital city is under threat from the heroic Greeks, who not only have conquered Albania but are endangering Bulgaria. The Germans actually had to go through Yugoslavia to assist Italy and Greece, which delayed the invasion of the Soviet Union significantly. But in this game, they're actually going to have to rescue Bulgaria as well. So, but they did take down Yugoslavia. Okay, so you'll note that it's about mid-May 1941. It took me a while to set everything up, and there's a reason for that. So, if you're a World War II buff, or if you played the game before, perhaps as Japan or the Soviet Union, you'll have seen an event fire called the Kalakin Gol battle. That should trigger in 1939. It was an attempted invasion of Mongolia by Japan. In real life, it brought Georgy Zhukov a great deal of fame for his actions in the battle, and Mongolia was protected by the Soviet Union. That event never fired. The result of the event is a non-aggression pact between Japan and the Soviet Union. You'll see we have no such agreement right now. That's problematic because it means our Eastern Front may come under attack. So I drew out a little plan of what we're going to do. So basically, the objective, you'll see the Trans-Siberian Railroad here. The plan is to hold the Trans-Siberian Railroad if at all possible. If any part of the railroad is severed, then we can't continue. You'll also note that the railroad continues. That's because Port Arthur used to be down around here, and that used to be Russian territory back when they built the railroad. I think it may actually be right here. I don't really remember where Port Arthur was right offhand right now, because I'm kind of tired from having done all this. But and we'll also have 3 divisions here to reinforce Mongolia should they start to fall, because you'll note this is all open plain down here where Genghis Khan's steppes are. So we're going to try and hold that out. I've not boosted the Navy over here in any way. We have 3 groups of submarines and a little bit of destroyer, but that's not going to help us very much. If any part of this chain is broken, then we're going to have to figure out a way to extricate ourselves from the situation, and most likely the guys around Vladivostok are going to get trapped. I've also got a little invasion plan for Toyohara Island, which actually did happen. Not in 1941, though. So that's the basic plan. They may be sent air forces as needed as well, because as you can see, there's only like 1 air base around for the Japanese. So we should have a pretty easy time gaining air superiority over them in the event that it's needed. We'll just have to worry about naval forces for the most part. Alright, and then we've got our northern front here in Finland. The objective here, of course, will be to bomb the German divisions, if at all possible, which it will be. I've also sent 2 tactical bombers with a multi-role fighter escort. And also we have our submarines, which will block every port in Norway that we can get to, which is every port in Norway, except perhaps Oslo. I don't know if we'll be able to get there. If we can, then great. I know the Baltic Sea submarines won't be able to get there because the straits here in Denmark are all going to be blocked. And I won't be able to move my subs through there. But we'll try and get up into Oslo if we can, and then that will more or less starve out the Germans entirely. At least up here. They can probably get supplies through Sweden, but that's a different affair. And, of course, once these divisions are broken, we'll attack and push them out of their port here in the Kirkens, and move the submarines along, but there will be subs here right to start. And of course, also we've got some invasion plans down here in case Persia drifts Axis. It's already rather Axis-y, but if it gets any worse, then we'll probably have to do something. It's not as vital because Italy has already lost, or rather, Italy was losing and is now gaining, so it's become more vital. As we produce additional troops, which are coming, we will move a lot of them down here. The reason for that being that if Turkey or Persia go Axis and Italy gains the Suez Canal, then my oil fields in Baku are pretty much done for in the event of that war. So you can see our objectives here and the way we'll carry out the invasion. I don't have enough troops yet to execute that plan. And in real life, in 1941, Kozlov was in charge of the operation, and the Soviets did invade Persia. So did the Brits from Iraq. And they basically split the country in half. They kicked out the Shah, put his son in charge, and occupied until 1946 Iran. So Iran basically ceased to exist and was occupied by the Soviet Union and Britain. Also, the Kurds, who have been in the news a lot lately, had their first country pretty much right out here in Baku. Was the first Kurdish republic. You can see Erbil, modern day Erbil, would be up around here. There it is, right there. It's even named. So you can see cities that have been in the news a lot lately in Tikrit and Kirkuk. So a little bit of geography there. But the first ever Kurdish state in the modern era was like right around in here. So that and that was a Soviet-sponsored endeavor. And now we have the big front. So I'll explain what's going on here. So first, submarines. Most of the Nazis' spare metal will be coming from Sweden, as is historical. So I'm gonna what in real life would be a violation of Sweden's neutrality, sailing into their territorial waters. I'm going to seek to use the Baltic Sea Fleet to block all of their ports so that none of that metal can get to Germany. I'm also, because we can't get through here up into the Atlantic, I need to block as many of the German ports as I can. And that should pretty well stop all of the Swedish material from reaching, with some exceptions, mainly what's coming out of Gothenburg and Malmo. But I assume the way resources are transported, I've been given to understand that it's the shortest possible route, and the metal reserves are somewhere around this area here. They're pretty close to the Finnish border. I could take them if I wanted to, but it would make for a hard war. So we're not really going to mess with attacking neutral Sweden, because I'm afraid of what my Finnish allies will do. And these dots, or the explosions, are hedgehogs. Yeah, they're meant to be battle signs, but I like them. They're all pointy looking, so I think they look more like hedgehogs. And basically what the plan here is a defense in depth. So we've got the first line in red with yellow arrows showing the generalized direction of retreat. Then a green line with a little bit of blue in it because I made a mistake shows the second line. So that'll basically just be our first line of retreat that we'll actually try to hold. And most of it's based on rivers and terrain. And then should that not hold, we'll fall back to our third defensive line, which will allow... So I have a problem, and the Soviets knew that they had it in real life too, are these marshes in Belarus. They're actually by Pripyat. If you played any of the Stalker games, or you know about the a little accident that happened in Chernobyl, then you would know about this swamp. So you can see I have to wrap around it. So my armies are divided in half except for Brest-Litovsk. So I'm not going to try to hold any of that really seriously, and that's why that's not marked as a hedgehog. And I need to retreat. And if we end up getting to this third defense line, we have a couple good rivers to use, and only a few soft spots to let things through, and then a pretty large gap here. But we do have Kiev to shore up that line as a hedgehog. And that'll the blue line is like our last true line of defense, and that'll be retreated to. If the second line looks like it'll hold, then we'll engage our armored forces there in counterattack actions. If we end up having to fall back to the blue line, then I will completely commit my armor to stem the tide where necessary. And if it gets really bad, then we'll have to draw up some new plans, because historically Leningrad was under siege. They got pretty close to Moscow, and they almost took Stalingrad. So you can see what a wide area that would require. And they almost took the Caucasus Mountains. So that would be bad. And they of course took Sevastopol and Odessa. So that is the plan. I'll go over how I mapped out my forces. So mainly for Stavka. The Northern, Iranian, and Eastern Front all got like the last pick of generals, so I wasn't, they didn't get anything really great. So for historical purposes, I gave Stavka Shaposhnikov. It really doesn't matter who your theater commander is. He's not nearly as important as you would think. And then I divided the army into 3 fronts. The Leningrad front, which covers the northern sector north of the marshes, and the Kiev front, which is the southern sector of the marshes, or south of the marshes. In real life, there were a lot more fronts than that, and even a lot more theaters than that, but for me as a human, it's pretty easy to do it in real life, or easier to do it this way than in real life. In real life, that'd be way too much work for one set of brains to deal with. And for my theater commands, I gave them high-skilled generals. Malinovsky, major factor in the Far Eastern War and throughout the war generally for organizational purposes. He also gives us an offensive bonus and a logistics wizard bonus. The reason I gave him an offensive bonus is because if a breakthrough occurs, a breakthrough in the north is easiest because there's a plain line right here that can get us into actual Germany, or at least Prussia, pretty easily and open up the country to us. So that's a pretty good axis of advance. And he commands the first mechanized army, which I build I like to organize my stuff by type. So the mechanized army is 2 tank corps, and 2 light tank corps under Georgy Zhukov, the most famous Russian general of the war. Very high skilled, so he'll give us a lot of efficiency and a lot of traits that are being passed. Rokossovsky, who's often talked about as sort of a second to Georgy Zhukov, is under Zhukov in charge of the tank corps. Ideally, I'd put Rokossovsky in charge of an army. I'm going to do that at a later date when we have another tank army to build. Berzane's just an offensive doctrine for the exploitation. Timoshenko, offensive. So as you can see, I've got my mech corps all set for offense. As far as other stuff, it's just whatever I felt like. I try to keep the army commands high so that the units get their organizational bonuses for having high skilled army commanders, even if they didn't have traits. And we just worked through there. I tried to give preference for frontline divisions to logistics and defense generals. The reason why is defense is pretty good and offense is really good. So, and or logistics, and I want those guys to get combat and level up quickly so that I can replace my my front commanders, or make new front commanders that are good, or army commanders that maybe would be better if they were logistics wizards. I also have a pretty substantial air situation going on here because of my rather massive air force. You can see there's only one little gap in it, and that massive bubble are my heavy bombers. It's kind of comedic that they can almost bomb Persia, but they're based in Sevastopol, and their goal is to bomb Ploesti. That's where most of Germany's oil is going to be coming from. And although it wouldn't have an effect in the short term because we all have rather large stockpiles of oil and fuel, if I can bomb it out and sustain it, it will break Romania's economy and also cause pretty big problems for Germany in a long conflict. It depends. My bombing of that is gonna pretty much just depend on. So I have to bomb Bucharest too, but how many times I can do that depends on how effective their air defenses are. And obviously you can see there are a lot of airfields in the area, so my heavy bombers may or may not get in and out. We're gonna do it at night. Night bombing is gonna be the way that we do it. And I've also, in my small airfields that you maybe saw me put down earlier, I just strapped out, you know, little interceptors here and there, and in the bigger places I stuck a ton of bombers with escorts, and those guys will engage in fire support operations when possible. It took me a lot longer to supply these troops, or to order everything, than I thought it was going to, so I ended up losing a lot of time. So we'll see if that comes into play, because my divisions are kind of weak here and there, and some of my headquarter units haven't been created yet, so they might break if they get bombed. But we've got like a month and some. Oh, there's the metal, so we should be okay. I'm gonna plant something until, there we go, the Marines are en route, so we should be pretty well guarded from any weird backdoor stuff. Finland has done the same to guard against it, so we should be pretty well set to go. I haven't changed anything politically either, so we're pretty much just waiting for the Germans to declare war or not, and we'll see if the Japanese declare war or not, because we don't have a non-aggression pact, and I am their highest threat, so that's not good. We don't want that. So we shall see. The next video will determine that one way or the other. I don't know how it's going to turn out. We definitely have enough troops, and we definitely have the technology to do well, but I was pretty slow, so some of my divisions are pretty low org. So we'll see how it all turns out.